this is Henry the Computer Guy, and you're most welcome to our 6th video about databases. Actually, in this video, we are going to be working with queries. So if at all you missed my previous videos, I would advise you to visit my channel, check under my playlist, and look for a folder called Working with Databases, such that you can be able to follow along with me. So remember, in our previous videos, we created our database, which was called the school database. And it is the one that we are going to be continuing with. So let's open it right away and begin. So when we open our database, this is the information we last had. This was our form, which was the student's form. And we also had one table with the data that we are seeing here. So this is the information we are going to be using as we are performing our queries. So what we are going to begin with is to get an understanding of what queries are and what we need to perform these queries. So I'll begin by posing a question to you. What are queries? So if I'm to answer this, a query refers to an action for instructing the database to return some data or all the data that matches a certain criteria from our database. For example, if you wanted to only get those members whose names start with letter N, you can always do that by using a query. So in simple terms, a query is a general inquiry facility because it is used to find and retrieve data from our database. So whenever you need any data from your database, you can always use what we call a query. But what you have to know is that queries are always updated whenever the original tables are updated. Remember, they always get the data from the tables, and whenever you update your table, the queries are automatically updated. So when we are working with queries, wildcard characters are always used. So that means that we have to first of all look at what we call the wildcard characters before we do any query. So let me begin by posing a question to you again. What are wildcard characters? And if I'm to answer this, a wildcard character is a special character that can stand in for either a single character or a string of text. That means that you can always use them to represent the data you're not certain about into your database. So whenever you're using or whenever you're creating a query, you're going to be using what we call the wildcard characters. They can always help you when you're looking for the data you're not certain about. So what are some of the examples of these wildcard characters? So we are going to be briefly talking about these examples, but we will talk about them in details as we are creating our queries. Let's begin by number one as the asterisk. Many of you have been calling this one as the star. What does it help us to do? So this one can help us to represent any strings of text from nothing to an entire paragraph or even more. So you're looking for those members whose names start with letter N and other characters you don't care about them. So you can always use what we call the asterisk symbol. So number two, we can talk about the question mark. What does the question mark help us to do in our queries? So this one will help us to represent a single character, but at times we can even use two question marks to represent two unknown characters. So whenever you're looking for two unknown characters or one character, you can always use what we call a question mark. So number three is the percent. We can always use the percent when we want to represent any or we want to match any characters, including the underscore, the zeros, and others. So we can always use that percent symbol. So number four, we can as well talk about the square brackets that are used to match characters within a bracket. For example, you have characters you want to match that are in a bracket. So the square brackets are always used to help us match characters within a bracket. Another one we can talk about is the exclamation mark. And this one helps us to exclude characters which are in the bracket. So you want to exclude some characters which are in the bracket, you have to precede them with what we call an exclamation mark. Another one we can talk about is the hyphen. Whenever you want to, let's say, match a given range, for example, from A to Z or from A to C, you always have to use what we call the hyphen. Another one we can talk about is the underscore itself. And whenever you want to match any single alphabetic character, you can always use this underscore symbol. And lastly, let's talk about the hash or the pound. At times it is called the numeric sign. So you can always use this one when you want to match or represent numeric characters. For example, previously we talked about the input mask and we used the SO001. So for those characters, we represented them with the hash symbol, meaning that they were supposed to be receiving numbers only. So those are some of the wildcard characters that can help us to work with our queries. So without wasting any time, let's see how we can use these symbols practically. So what we are going to do, we are going to have some questions that are going to be guiding us as we are creating our queries. And first of all, let's get one question at the beginning. So question one says, for example, create a query to display those students whose names, for example, Roman 1, begin with letter N. For example, Roman 2, end with the letter E. So how are we going to perform these queries? So we are going to begin our query number 1. So we want to find or display those students whose names begin with the letter N. So how are we going to do that? So we are going to come to the option that says create. And having come on the option that says create, we are going to look for that section that says queries. And when we come here, we have two options. We have the query wizard and the query design. You can use any of the two, but for our case, we are going to first of all prefer the query wizard. Why am I using the wizard? The wizard is just a step by step. It is going to be guiding us as we are creating our queries. So I'm going to be selecting the query wizard. So I will come and check it. So having clicked on it, it is going to give us a new query. And we are going to perform a simple query. So they are going to tell us down here that this wizard creates a select query from the fields you pick. That means that it is going to be working on only the fields that we select. But you can always select all of them if you feel you want. So let's come and click on OK. We are going to be performing a simple query. Then we come and click OK. And having said OK, they are going to take us to another section where we have simple query wizard. So they are asking us which fields do you want onto your query. So we have to come and select the fields that will appear on our query. So we come and click onto the section we have here that says table stroke query. That means that you can always be able to select either the query or the table to work with. So for our case, we only have one table. We are going to be selecting it. And having selected it, down here we have the available fields. And we have to select the fields we want to appear into our query. So we are going to select. I told you that if you want to select one by one, you use one single arrow. And if you want to select all of them, you use the double arrow. So it will take everything that you have there. But for our case, we are going to select some of them. Let me take them back. And when you want to take them back, you can as well decide to take one by one at a time, or you take all of them at the same time. But for our case, we are going to be selecting one by one. So I will take the arrival, the student's ID, I will take the student's name, the date of birth, position, gender. So let me just select them as you're looking at them. So let's leave this boarding section. We can leave it. We can even leave the photo. You can decide to pick any that you feel you want. Let me jump to another one that we have as the balance. For example, I will select it. Then I'll select the telephone, the date of entry. Then I can end on those ones if I feel I want. And having selected the fields I want to appear on my query, I will come and say next. After clicking next, they will ask you, would you like to add detail or summary? It is going to be a detail. Then I will say yes. Then they will take us to the section where we have to give it a name. Remember, I told you that this query is going to be giving us those names that are beginning with letter N. Then other characters, we don't care about them. So let's call it beginning, let's say starting with the N. We give it that name, starting with capital N. So we want to get a query that can give us the names. We put a name here. Names starting with letter N. So after that, we are going to click on the option that says modify. Remember, we have two options here. We can come and say, let's say, open the query to view the information. Then we have that one that says modify the query. Remember, we are going to be modifying the query. We have to put in the criteria that we want this query to give us. So that means that we are not just going to open it, we are going to be modifying the query. So I will come and click on the option that says modify. And having selected it, I will come and say finish. So when you click finish, they will take you to this other section and they will tell you to put in exactly what you want. Remember, we are looking for those names that are beginning with letter N. So where do we get those names? Remember, when we come to our table, they are the student's name. So we are going to be selecting the field that has a student's name. Let's go back to our query. When we come back to our query, we are going to look for the name or the student's name. And we look for where they interact with what we call the criteria. Remember, the criteria is what we want our database to work upon. So I will come below here, and this is where the criteria meets with my student's name. So I will come and type in exactly what I want. For example, I will type and say like, I will open my quotes, then I will put in exactly what I want. So remember, we are beginning with N. The names that are beginning with the letter N. So I will type my N. And having typed that, I will put the wildcard character. For example, the star. Then I will close my quotations. Let me zoom this one and you see how it looks like. By right-clicking onto this section, then come and click on the option that says zoom. So when you click on it, this is how it is displayed. So we are saying that we want like those names that are beginning with letter N, but other characters, I don't care about them. Remember, we said that we are going to be using wildcard characters. So this can stand in for other characters that we have not talked about. But specifically, we want to begin with letter N. So having done that and understood it, let's click OK. And having clicked OK, you'll come back here onto your query design, then click on the option that says run. So having done that, it is going to give us our results. So they have given us those characters or those students that are having the name starting with letter N. So that is how you can do that. So let's try another option. For example, if you want to get those names that are ending with letter E. So we shall come and repeat the same procedure. We click on create. Then we come to the query wizard. Then they are telling us that you must first save the other one that we have done. Of course, yes. And we continue. It is going to be a simple query. Then we come and pick again. Simple query wizard. Which fields do you want? For example, I will come back. Remember, I told you that you have to know where you're selecting the information from. I'm going to be selecting them from my table. Then I will select it. I will come and pick the items I want to be onto my query. So let me say I want this one up to, let's say, the fees, then paid. I'll skip the boarding section. I put the picture, the email, then I can as well come to the balance. I selected this one, I selected this, I selected this. I can end on those. Then I will say next. Then would you like to be detailed or summary? I want it to be detailed. Then I'll say okay. Then I'll give it a title. Let's say names ending with letter, let's say E. So I'll come and modify. Remember, if you just open it, will just give you everything that is in the table. Then here we have to put in exactly what we want. So I'll click on modify. Then I'll come and say finish. And having finished that, we'll look for the field we want exactly. So it is still the student's name. So I'll come here, then let me zoom it. I'll come and type, let's say like, I'll open my quotes, then I put in exactly what I want. Remember, we want those names that are ending with letter E. So what I will do, I'll put my star in front because the beginning characters, I don't care about them, but I only care about the last character, which is E. So I'll put my E there. Then I'll close my quotations, then I'll say, okay. So this one is going to look for those names that are ending with letter E. The first characters, they don't care about them, and I've represented them with a wildcard character, which is the star or the asterisk. So I'll come and say, okay. And having clicked OK, I can come back to my query design. Then I run it just like that. So they are giving me names that are ending with letter E. So that is how you can create a query for the name starting with a certain letter and the names ending with a certain letter. Let's come to question 2. And they are telling us that create a query to display, for example, the male students and the female students. So we can save it as, let's say, male students and another one, female students. We are going to repeat the same procedure. So by coming to the option that says create, then we come to our query wizard. And having clicked there, they are telling us that we must first save the previous action we have done. Yes, we have saved it. Then we are doing a simple query, remember, and where are we selecting from? We are selecting from our students table. Then you come and look for the fields you want to appear onto your query. So you'll come and select one by one if you feel you want. If you want to take them, you can always use the double arrows. So for me, I don't want to take them all. I'll use just one. Let me just keep some of them. Can even put the email. I can leave this download and come to, let's say, the balance. I take it, the telephone, the date of entry. Then I can say next. These are the fields I want. So would you like to be a detailed or summary? I want it to be a detailed. So I'll come and say you put the title also. Remember, I'm looking for those female students or male students. Let me begin with the male students. So I will come and say male. Let me just call it male students. So this query is going to give us the male students only. So I will come and modify. Remember, I'm not just going to open it. I will just modify. I write my query under the criteria. So I will come and say finish. And having finished, I will have to look for that field that I'm going to use. Remember, this one was student's name. So for this one is gender. So I will come where there is gender and where it meets with the criteria and type there something that I want to work upon. Let me zoom it again by right clicking. Then I say like. Then I will open my quotes. I'll put male. Remember in the table we used male for the male students and female for female students. So I want only the male. So I'll put my male. I'll put male. Then I'll close my quotes and click OK. Then run. It is going to give me only the male students. So I'll come and click on run. It is giving me only the male. When you come to the option for gender here, you'll see that I only have the male students. Let's repeat this one for female students. We come back and create, come back to the option that says query wizard. Then we must save the previous action. Simple query, of course, and we are going to be selecting from our table again. Then we come and select some fields we want to put onto our query. Let me just select as I've been selecting. I will jump that one. Let me come back to, I leave the downloads. Let me come back to the balance, the telephone, the date of entry. Then I would say these are the fields I want onto my query. I will come and say next. Then it is going to be a detail again. I'll say next. Then we give it a title. This is going to be female students. So we call it female students. Then we come and say modify because we have to write there a criteria. So come and say finish. And having finished, we come to the field we want to work upon. That is the gender. Then we come and zoom it and write something there. So let's write like. We open our quotes, then we put female. So it is going to be looking for only the female students. After that, I will come and say okay. And having said okay, we can come back to the query design and click on the option that says run. So that is how we can work upon that. So let's go to another question. And another question is telling us that create a query to display the age of the students. Save it as age. Remember, we are having the date of birth and they are asking us to find the age of the students. So how are we going to do that? Remember, dates can be subtracted. As you can calculate your age, even here dates can be subtracted. For example, we have the date of birth. We can subtract it with current date and get our ages. So that is what we exactly going to do now. So we come back to the option that says create. And having clicked on create, we are choosing our query wizard. Then we must save the previous record. We must first save the previous action. And having done that, we can come to a simple query as usual. Then we select our table that we are using. Remember, we had one table, but you can as well work with the queries that you're having. But for our case, we are using the students table. And I've selected it. We also selected the fields we want to appear on our query. Then I'll say I'll take this up to, let's say, the paid. Then I jump that one. I can even jump this one. I come to this, any that you feel you want. Let me put it. Then I come to balance. Then I select it. I select the telephone. I select the date of entry. Then I can end on that one and say next. Then it is going to be again the detailed. I'll come and say next. Then they have told us that we have to give it a name as age. So I'm going to come and give it a name as age. That is our title. Of course, we are going to be selecting the option that says modify because we have to put a criteria there that we have to work upon. Then I'll say okay and click on the finish. And having clicked on finish, it will take us to where we can work with our criteria. So what do we need? We need to calculate the ages of those students that we are having. So you come down here and start scrolling. And when you scroll, they're going to show you all the information. So where it ends is where we want to find the age from. I'm going to come here and type a new field. For example, I'll type age. Let me zoom it such that you can see what I'm typing. And having zoomed it, this is how it will look like. We want to find the age, but how are we going to do that? Of course, we are going to put a colon. So here we don't put equal signs. We use our colon as the equal sign. So the colon works as the equal sign when you're working with queries. So I'm going to put my colon there. And having put my colon, I want to put in the formula that can give me that. So how are we subtracting the dates? We use a formula we call the date div. So I'm going to type date div. So it is going to get the difference between the dates. So what I'm going to open my bracket and open my quotes. I want to represent it in years. So I'll put my Y to stand for the years. Then I will close the quotes. And having closed the quotes, I'm going to put a comma. But what do I want to subtract? I want to subtract the DOB and the current date. Of course, when we come down here, the DOB was represented as date of birth. When you come down here, it is represented as date of birth because when you look here, we have it as date of birth. So it is the word I'm going to put there exactly the way it looks like. So I'll open my square brackets, then I'll put the word I want to use. For example, the date of birth. Then I'll close my square bracket. What am I subtracting with? Then I'll put a comma, then I say now. So now is going to stand or represent the current date. So let me open my brackets and close them. So this is how we can use to represent the current date. It will put it automatically based on the date that you're having onto your computer. So it will be taking the current date. And having done that, we can now close our bracket. So this is the bracket that we opened first. It is the one that we have closed at the last. But we are representing them in years and we are subtracting the date of birth and the current date. So this is what can give us the ages of these learners. But remember, after doing it, you have to check this option for it to be visible when you run your query. So I'm going to come and click OK. And having clicked OK, so it shows us that it has given it a tick such that it is visible when we run our query. So I will come and click on Run. Come back to your query design and click on the option that says Run. So we come and check for our ages. Let's scroll down here and see whether it has given us. So it has finally given us the ages. So we have 23, 27, 27, 27. And if at all you don't want it to be visible here, you'll go back to your design view and check this one. It will not be visible. So whenever you want an item to be visible, you always have to check it. So if I check it, it will always be visible. And I'm going to make it visible because the question was asking for the age. So I can click on Run. And that is how we can calculate our ages. So we calculate the ages by using what we call the date div. So another question is asking for, so it is telling us to create a query to display a 4-digit year of a value of date of birth. For example, let's look at the date of birth here. When we look at the date of birth, the years is represented as 2 values here. So they want us to represent the whole of it. How are we going to do that in our query? It is the same thing we are going to be doing. We come back to the option that says create. And having clicked on create, we'll come to the option that says query wizard. Then we save the previous action. Yes, we want to save it. It's going to be our simple query again. Then we come and select the table we are going to be using. If you're having multiple tables, you can always be selecting the table you feel you want to use. If you're having a query you want to use, then you can always select it. So we are using that table, students. Then we come and select the fields we want to appear onto our query. I'm going to be selecting one by one. Then I end on the paid as we have been doing. I select the photo, I select the email, I can come back down to the balance again. I want to put the downloads. Then I'll say next. And having clicked that, we are coming to the detailed. Then I'll say next. We give it a name. Remember, we are going to be looking for the year. We want to represent that year in 4 digits. For example, if it was representing here 99, it will display for us 1999. It was representing 80, it will represent 1980. That is what I want. It is going to be displaying a 4-digit number. So I will come and say this one. Let me name it as year. After naming it as year, I will come and click on the option that says modify. Remember, I want to write something there. So I have to click on modify. Then I will come and say next. And having clicked on next, we have to come and add. Let's scroll to the last field. Then we put our year. So I'm going to zoom this one again such that you can be seeing what I'm doing. Just like that, I put this one aside. Then I put in my formula. So what am I going to be looking for? I'm going to be looking for the year. Let me type year. Then we put our colon. We say that instead of using the equal signs, here we use the colons. So we are saying that our year. But what formula are we going to use to display that 4-digit number? We use the one we call the date part. So I'm going to type date part. And having typed it, we're going to be opening our brackets. Then we open our quotes and represent it in years. So I'll represent that with Y. Then I'll close my quotations. And having put my quotations, I'll put my comma. Then I put what exactly I want to work upon. Remember, we have said that we are going to be working upon the date of birth to be represented in 4-digit number. So I'll come and open my square bracket, then come and write what I feel I want. Remember, it is date of birth. So write it exactly the way it looks like. So date of birth. Then I'll close it. And again, I will close my bracket. Remember, we opened the bracket here, so we have to close the bracket. So I will come and click on OK. So if you want it to be visible, of course, you'll have to check this symbol. Then come back to the query design and click on the option that says Run. And having clicked that, we are going to come back to our table, our query, the answers which have been given to us, and it has displayed the date of birth in 4-digit number. This is 1999, 1995, this is 1980, this is 2003. So this is what we call the date part. So having done that, we can also go to another question. And they're telling us that create a query to display female or male students, but the amount paid for female must be greater than or equal to 200,000. So how many questions are we having there? They're talking about the gender, and they're talking about the amount paid. And they're talking about two items. We have the gender, let's say we have the male, and we also have the female. So they are now categorizing these things. So how are we going to do that? We can come to our query. We come to the option that says create. Having clicked on create, we come to the query wizard. When we come to the query wizard, we can save the last action by clicking yes. We come to our simple query as usual. We come and select the table we want to work with, that is the students table. Then we select the fields we want to appear on our query by clicking on to this arrow to select all of them that we want to use. So we can come to the footer again as we have been doing. We come back to our balance. Again, we can select one by one. So these are the ones we are going to be using on our query. We can say next. And of course, it is going to be a detailed query. So you say next. Then we give it a title. Which name are we going to call it? For example, we can look for any name that is specifically in line with what the question says. So they told us that we are going to be finding female or male, but female greater than greater than or equal to 200,000. That means that we have to display the students either female or male, but the money paid by the female has to be greater than or equal to 200,000, as you're seeing. That is the query we are going to be working upon. So I'll come and modify because we have to write something there. So now we come back to where we put our query. And remember, they have talked about the female or male. That means that we are going to be working with the gender. So we'll come back to our gender where the criteria meets with gender. We shall come and write like. Let me zoom it. It will come just like that, like. We open our quotes and they have said female first. So we close this. Then we say, okay. They said all. Remember down here we have another option that says all. We come and write the male. Let's zoom it also and write like. We open our quotes, then we say male. Then we close it. So that has been the gender. But remember they said that the amount of money for the female has to be greater than or equal to 200,000. So for the males, they have not talked about the money. That means that they can display any amount of money so long as they are male. So we will come to the option that says amount paid. We look for that amount paid, which is here. Where there is female, we come and put this greater than or equal to 200,000. So I'm going to be using symbols. I'll put the greater than symbol, then equals. That stands for greater than or equals. Then I put the money 200, 1, 2, 3. This is the 200,000. So having done that, we come back to our query design. Then we click on the option that says run. It will give us that information. So when you come to the amount paid here, they're telling us that this is male has 400, female 250, male has 450, male has 300. So we have even the male that has 100. That means that the query was specifically for the gender, but amount paid was specifying 200, thousand for only the female. So it was not preventing us from displaying any amount paid by the male. So that is it and how we can do it. So we have used the criteria and even the option that says all. And we have also worked with multiple fields. So that is it for that one. Let's go to another query. And they're telling us that create a query to display those students with names starting with J to N. So now we are going to be working with a range. So they want us to get those students whose names start with the letter J to letter N. That means that it can give us from J, K, L, M. So we are getting a range. Remember, we say that when we are working with a range, we use what we call the hyphen. So let's try it and see. We'll come to the option that says create. Having come to create, we come to wizard. Query wizard, we save the previous action, okay. Then it is going to be a simple query. Then we come and choose what we want to work with. It is the students table. Then we select the fields that will appear on our query. Say next, next, next. Then we look for only those fields that we want to put. Let me jump this. Let me jump this even. I can put, let me jump this also. I can put, let's say the balance. Yes, I want it to be there. And the date of entry. So let me say next. And of course, it is going to be a detailed query. So I'll come and say next. And we can give it a name. So we can say names starting with J to N. So now this is going to be a range. So it has to give us those names that can start from J to N. For example, J, K, L, M, N. So we come and click on the option that says modify and rate our query. So we come and click on the option that says finish. And having done that, we come to the field that we are going to be using. Remember, they have talked about the names, so we shall come to the student's name. We come where the criteria meets the student's name and type our criteria. Let me zoom it again and you see what I'm going to be typing. So how are we going to work with this one? We're going to say like. You can put it in small letters or capital letters. It depends on what you feel you want. So like, we open our quotes. And how are we going to represent this? So we're going to be opening our square brackets. Then we put in the letters that we need to use. For example, they said J, 2. How are we going to represent the 2? We are going to be using the hyphen. Then we represent the N. They said that they're going to be beginning from J2 to N. Then after that, we close our square bracket. We put the asterisk symbol because we want the J and other characters. We want the K and other characters. We want the L and other characters. We want the M and other characters. We want the N and other characters. We don't know. So we can now close our quotations. So this is what can give us the ranges. But remember, whenever you're working with a hyphen, you have to always make sure they are in ascending order, not descending order. The range you have to make has to be in ascending order. So after doing that, we can click on the option that says OK, and we run it and see whether it will give us our answers. So we come to the query design, then click on the option that says run. Having done that, let's look at the names. They have given us N, this is fine. They have given us K, it is fine. It is still in the range. Then J in the range, then K in the range, J in the range, and others. So that is how you can work with the ranges. So let's have another question now. And they're telling us that create a query to display the students whose names don't start with J. Remember, we say that when you're working or excluding characters, you use what we call the exclamation mark. So we want to see how we can work with the exclamation mark. So we will come back to our create and we come and choose our query wizard. Then come and save the last action we have done. Then come and say simple query. Then we come and choose the table we are going to be working with. Then select the fields we want to appear on our query. So I'm going to be selecting them up to, let's say, paid. Then I'll skip, let's say these ones, I can skip them and come to, let's say the balance. Then I'll come and select the whole of this. Let me end on that one. So I'll come and click next. Yes, it is going to be a detailed. I'll come and say continue. Then we give it a name. Let's say node starting with J. Names, node starting with J. So they are going to give us all other names that are not starting with J. So we come and modify again. We click finish. And having clicked finish, we are going to look for that field for the names. Then we write our query. For example, I'll come and zoom it again such that we can see what we are writing. So I'll come and say like. Then I'll open my quotes. I'll come and open my square bracket. Remember, we say that if you're excluding characters, use the exclamation mark. So I'll put my exclamation mark. Then I'll put the J. And having put the J, I'll close my square bracket. Then it is followed by what we call the asterisk or the star. Because other characters, I don't care about them. I only care about those ones that are not starting with a J. Then I can close my quotes. After that, we run this and see. They will give us names that are not starting with letter J. So we come back to our query design, then click on the option that says run. And having run that, they have given us all those names that are not starting with letter J. So it is just very simple like that. Let's create another query, and they're telling us that we have to make a calculation now. And they're telling us that to create a query to calculate the balance, which is the difference of the fees and the amount paid. Assuming that we didn't have this balance in our table, and they wanted us to use a query to calculate that balance. So we come and try it out. Come and click on the option that says create, then come to your query wizard. We save the last action, which is okay. It is going to be a simple query again, and we come and select the table we are going to be working with. Then we select the fields we want to use onto our query. So let me end on paid, and let me jump these ones. I come again, I put, I'm going to skip the balance because we are going to be using the query to find the balance. So let me skip it and come to telephone, then date of entry. So I will come and say next. Then after that, we come and make it as a detailed year. Then we give it a name. For example, remember we are finding the balance. Let me call it balance as the name, balance. We call it the balance. Then we click on the option that says modify. And having clicked on that option, we come and click on finish. So we want to work upon this and make a calculation in a query. So we come and scroll to our last field. Then we come and click here. We want to find the balance. So let me zoom it again and we see what we are going to be doing. So we write our formula again. We are going to be calling it the balance again. How are we finding it? We said we use the colon, not the equal sign, to represent that. Then we open. What do we want to work with? Remember, they said it is the difference of the fees and the amount paid. So you write exactly the way you wrote these words in your table. So it is going to be getting the fees, we close it, minus, we open our square bracket, the amount paid. Amount paid. Then we close our square bracket. After that, you click OK. And having clicked OK, you make sure that you check this option and we run our query by coming to the query design, then on the option that says run. Then you click on it. Of course, it is giving us the balance. Are we together? This is how we can work with the balance. And if you didn't want to represent this Ugandan shillings there, you can as well go back to your design view and make some modification by coming and click here on the option or properties. And having clicked on the properties, you can come and set the properties you want. You can put a description. You can come and change the format. For example, I want it to be a standard. I don't want to put the small places there. Let me put it to a 0. And I can continue with that. Let me close this. Click on X and we close it, then we run it again. And having run that, we have the 400,000 without the U, GX, and other options. So you can always format your query the way you feel you want. Let's go to another question, and it is telling us that create a query to display those students whose position is between 2 and 4. We are going to be working with what we call the position. So how are we going to do that? Come to our option that says create, and having clicked on create, we come to the option that says query wizard. We save our last action of K, then we come to our simple query, then we come and select the table we want to work with. Remember, we are working with students, so you can scroll up to students, then you select the fields you want to be onto your query. Let me end on amount paid. I will put, let's say, the photo again, and choose any that I feel I want to put onto my query. So I can come and say next. And having said next, we can come and make it a detail, then okay. We give it a name. Let's say they have told us between. So let me also call it between 2 and 4. Let me put a word position such that we can always distinguish them. Position between 2 and 4. So let's click on the option that says modify. Having clicked on modify, we come and click finish. So let's come to the field that says position. Then we write our criteria. Let me right click and zoom it also. We see what we are going to be working with. So we come and write between they have told us between what and what. They have told us between 2 and, the way you hear this, and 4. This is what we are going to be running. The position we want it, they wanted the position between 2 and 4, and that's what we have written. So you'll come and click OK. And having clicked OK, you're going to run. So it will give us that. But remember, when you use between 2 and 4, it will also put the 2 and 4 inclusive. So that is how it works in Access. So we look at our position. We have the 2, we have the 3, we have the 4. The between will also put or include those characters that you have used, or those criteria you have used. For example, we have used between 2 and 4, and they have been included. So that is how we can work with a between. So let's go to another question, and it is telling us that I create a query to ask for input from a user. For example, if you're working with, let's say, position or any other field, let's create our query by coming to the option that says create, then come to the query wizard, then you save your last action the way we have been doing it, then simple query. And having done our simple query, we pick our table that we are going to be working with again. Then we select our fields. We select the fields we want to appear onto our query. We can jump all these ones and put this. Then we can say next. Of course, it is going to be a detailed. We continue. Then we give it a name. Then we write our title, for example, the name. Let's say this is going to be enter your input. Enter your input. So now we come and say modify. For example, we come and click on the option that says finish. And when I come to the, for example, you're going to be working with the position, we'll come and put something here that will always ask for the user's input. For example, if I open my square bracket and I leave it empty, then I close it. This is what I've done. Let me zoom it and you look at it. I've opened my square bracket and I've put nothing, then I've closed it again. So it will be asking for the user's input. And when the user enters something, then it will look for that data always. So you come and click OK, then you come to the query design and run your query. Click on the option that says run. So it will ask you to put something. For example, if I put, let's say 2 and run, it will always give me the data. So they have given me only position 2. So that means that when you close this one and run it again, it will ask you for another input. So that is a query based on user's input. We click on Control S to save. So let's go to our last question, and this is going to be working with a if statement. And remember, when you're working with if statements, you always have to know the conditions that you're having. So if statements works on conditions. If you have two conditions, then you'll always be using one if statement. If you have three conditions, you'll be using two if statements. If you're having four conditions, then you'll be using three if statements. So they go on increasing just like that. So you always have to base on the number of conditions you have to work on the if statement. Let's get a question. So they are telling us that we are going to be creating a query. For example, they can use the field for fees. We can use the field for amount paid. We can use that one for amount paid. Someone has paid an amount paid, let's say 200,000. Let them get a bonus of let's say of 0. Let's say 0.25. It depends on how the question wants you to perform that. So now we are going to be using the amount paid and see how we can use the if statement. So now let's come back to our create, our option that says create. Then we click on the option that says query wizard. Having clicked on query wizard, we are going to be using a simple query. Then we come and select our table we are going to be using as we have been doing. This is students. Then we come and select the fields we want to appear onto our query. Let me say we are going to use all these ones. Amount paid, then we can skip these ones, we add all these that we will have. Then we come and say next. And having said next, we are going to be making it a detailed. Of course, we continue. Then we come and give it a title. Let's say we can call it let's say if statement. Let me call it any name that I feel I want. Let me call it if statement. Then come down here and modify. So you come and call or come and click on the option that says finish. And having clicked on finish, we have to write an if statement there. So they are basing onto the amount paid. If the amount paid is greater than or equal to 200,000, that person is going to be getting a discount. Let's come and scroll up to the end, then we put our discount. Again, we are going to be zooming this one such that we can see what we are going to be working with. So let me enlarge this one a little and rate what we are going to be seeing. So let's rate what we are going to be finding. We want that discount. But remember, the discount was saying we are going to be getting the discount using the if statement. So we shall write our discount. We put our colon there. Then we type if. Remember, this if is going to be different from the if you use in the Excel. It starts with II. So I'll type my if. This is what stands for if statement in Microsoft Access. So I'll open my bracket. Remember, we always have what we call the logical test, the value if true and the value if false. So we have to first of all look at the logical test. What are we going to be testing? We are going to be testing the amount paid. So I'll open my square bracket, then I put the amount. Remember, it is in capital letters. Amount paid. Then I'll close my square bracket. If the amount paid is greater than, we are putting greater than symbol, or equal to 200,000, what will that person get? We want to put the true part. Then after, we put the false part. So if the amount paid is going to be greater than or equal to 200,000, someone has to get, let's say, the amount paid, multiplied. That means that we need the asterisk by 0.025. That person has to be getting that So they will get this money multiplied by 0.025 as the discount. Then what about if this person doesn't have this criteria or doesn't meet this criteria? That one is going to be getting a 0 or no discount. You can decide to put a word or you can put the value. So I'm going to put 0. So I'll put my comma, then I put my 0. After putting my 0, I will close the bracket. So this bracket is closing this first bracket we opened. So let's first of all pass through it again. So if the amount paid is greater than or equal to 200,000, so if someone does omits this criteria, we'll be getting the amount paid times 0.025 as the discount. Then 0 if they don't meet this criteria. So after that, you're going to come to the option that says OK. And having clicked that, you can now come to the query design and run your query by clicking on the option that says run. So after doing that, you will come and see that they have given us the discount. So let's look at the amount paid. This one is having 100, is having a 0. This one is having 100, is having 0. This one is having 200, they have given that person a discount. But based on the amount paid, then we have this one, amount paid is there. So that is how we can also work with the if statement in so having created all these queries using what we call the query wizard, we are also going to take time and use what we call the query design and we create one query. So what we are going to do is to create a query for those people who have paid, let's say, amount paid as greater than, let's say, 250,000. So what we are going to do, we are going to come and select the query design. And having selected the query design, this is the information they are going to give us and it is empty. So what we are going to do is to add the table. There is this option that says add table. So I'm going to come and add our table. Remember, we only had one table, so I'm going to double click on it. And having clicked on it, it will be brought to you just here. And you're going to be selecting the fields you're going to be using. For example, I want to use the arrival number. I'll come and double click on it. Then I will have to use this. I'll double click on it. I need this. I'll double click on it. Any that you want to use onto your query, you'll just come and double click on it. Position will be there. Then the gender will be there. The fees will also be there. Then the amount paid will be there. The let's say we need to put the photo. Let's say those are the ones we wanted to use. And we want to create a query for those, let's say, amount paid that is greater than, let's say, 200,000. So what we are going to do is to come and scroll a little bit here. Then we come to that field that we want to use. For example, I will come to the criteria and type exactly what we want to work with. For example, let me zoom it a little. And having zoomed it, this is how it will look like. So we want to write our criteria. Remember, we say that we want to get those students who have paid, let's say, greater than 200,000 or from 200,000 and above. So you can always create it from here. So I'm going to type, let's say, the greater than, let's say, 200,000. So this is what I've written. It is going to give us the amount paid or the details of those learners that have paid amount that is greater than 200,000. So you will come and say OK. And having clicked OK, you're also going to come back to the query design and run. And having run, that is the information they have given to us. But remember, the query is not yet saved. So we have to click on the option that says save. And having clicked on it, I'm going to give it a name, which was, let's say, greater than 200,000. Then you'll be clicking on the option that says OK. And our query has been also saved. So this is what we exactly had for this video. Thank you for being such a good audience. In the next video, we are going to be working with a report. Hope to see you there. Bye-bye. It's been Henry the Computer Guy. I sign out.